Mihawk vs Shanks, arguably the most debated matchup in all of One Piece. And don't worry, this isn't a power scaling video. I'm not going to be arguing about whether Shanks is a swordsman or whether Mihawk is just, flat out stronger. No, instead today I want to examine these two characters from a character writing and narrative perspective and try to answer why Mihawk has no interest in fighting Shanks. So if you find yourself entertained at any point during the video, consider liking, subscribing and ringing that bell. Anyway, on with the video. Now, as we know, Mihawk is the world's strongest swordsman, and as such he is without question the strongest swordsman alive. If one is to challenge him to a sword duel, they will lose. This isn't something he is rumoured to be, like Kaido being the world's strongest creature, or always winning in a 1v1. No, it is made clear multiple times in the series that he is indeed the strongest swordsman. Now, as to what the series defines as swordsmanship is not the easiest thing to narrow down. For example, King uses a sword, but Zoro plainly states he is not a swordsman. So to be a swordsman isn't as simple as just using a sword as your weapon of choice. Although I don't plan to break down the nitty gritty of what is and isn't swordsmanship here, I do want to make clear that swordsmen operate by a certain code, a certain way of fighting unique to them in the world of pirates. As Shanks states himself, and then later Luffy, there is no rules or fair play when it comes to pirates. Pirates don't care about being the strongest, they care about being free. Only swordsmen are concerned with strength in this way. That's not to say there are no pirates who operate in the same way as swordsmen, but in general pirates aren't operating the same way as swordsmen. Swordsmen have a strict goal, one they all share, to be the strongest. They won't use tricks, they don't turn their backs, they never gang up. A swordsman's duel is the purest form of combat on the seas, as these duels are to determine who is genuinely stronger in a fair fight. Whitebeard may be the world's strongest man, but it's not like he competed for that title. He became the strongest man to protect his family. It's not the title he fought for, the title is just a byproduct of his true goal. But for Zoro, Mihawk and any other who have sought that title, the title itself is the goal. They want to be the strongest to prove they are, well, the strongest. As the current world's strongest swordsman, Mihawk has already climbed up the ladder, defeated all strong swordsmen in his path till he reached the summit and had none left to challenge. This is why he doesn't do anything in the story, because he's already made it to the top, proved his right to sit on the throne. Why should the king go down to find challengers? No, those who seek his title must seek him out, climb up the ladder of swordsmen to have the right to face him. He may want a challenge, but going to find a challenge wouldn't accomplish that. He doesn't seek out strong swordsmen to fight, he wants those swordsmen brazen enough, driven enough to not back down and come claim his title. It's why he was so impressed with Zoro. Sure, this East Blue swordsman was an insect compared to Mihawk, a frog in a well, far weaker than many he'd already duelled, but even despite their difference in strength, he still bared his fangs. Zoro wasn't some overconfident rookie. He was one who would rather die than live in a world where he isn't the world's strongest swordsman. The man would rather die here and now than give up his dream to place your dream over your own life. Zoro refusing to step back in this fight is, in my opinion, the greatest feat of will we've ever seen in the series. And it is that will that impressed Mihawk, why he considered Zoro one who will one day climb up to the top and may well take his title. To place personal strength and glory above all else, to want to prove you can be the best. These are the kinds of men Mihawk wants to cross blades with. These are the true swordsmen. Without this mindset, nobody can attain that title. And so this is where Shanks comes in. Why Mihawk doesn't want to fight him. Because Shanks isn't someone who would risk his life on a title, wouldn't do anything to become the strongest, would do anything to win a fight, not pursue a fair swordsman's duel. Mihawk doesn't want to fight Shanks, as Shanks is not one filled of ambition, isn't the kind of swordsman Mihawk wants to cross blades with. Shanks losing his arm is symbolic of many things, but the biggest one is that he bet on the next generation, on Luffy. Now, we don't know the specifics of Shanks' destiny and role. He is called the Child of Destiny by Gaban, but it seems he abandoned that role. Instead of becoming the next pirate king like Buggy wanted him to be, or eating the Nika fruit himself and becoming the next Joy Boy, he instead chose to lay back and allow Luffy to take up that role. with him losing his arm in order to do so. He gave up his arm as if to say he doesn't need it, because now Luffy will be the one to change the world, not him. Although not quite the same as inherited will, his faith in Luffy is along the same lines. Given only now that Luffy is a Yonko he is stepping up himself to go after the One Piece, it does seem likely Shanks himself, even now, has no intention of claiming the One Piece himself, and really does just want to exist as a final challenge for Luffy to overcome in order to become the next Pirate King. Because he has no desire to be the strongest pirate, he doesn't need to be the king. He is content to sit around drinking as long as he knows those he cares for are safe. He will let himself be humiliated by those who are ants to him, because who cares? A big contrast to how Mihawk, hunted Don Krieg down to the East Blue, across the Calm Belt, from the Grand Line, just because he annoyed him a bit. All that taken into account, this doesn't paint the picture of the kind of man Mihawk would seek to fight, although it may be a bit extreme to say he's given up his ambition for the next generation. That is still kind of the sentiment I'm trying to get across. Mihawk not wanting to fight Shanks has nothing to do with strength. It's because Shanks, in Mihawk's eyes, gave up the ambition he once had when he lost his arm. Sure, Shanks used to be someone who would seriously duel with Mihawk, but not anymore. I mean, it might be possible he never was full of ambition like Mihawk, it's just that back then Mihawk had yet to ascend to the throne, and so he himself had a lower standard of the kind of duels he wanted. And if I'm to speculate a bit, this way of thinking, Mihawk's disinterest in Shanks because he holds someone else's ambition above his own, may well be the point of his and Zoro's final duel. As Zoro is someone who puts Luffy's dream on the same pedestal as his own, he in a way is the same as Shanks. And by beating Mihawk, even in spite of this, it may show Mihawk the error in his thinking and why he was wrong to judge Shanks as no longer worthy of fighting. But that again is all, speculation. The overall point is Shanks and Mihawk are very different characters with very different goals. Why each became strong is very different. One born out of personal ambition, and the other out of the desire to be strong enough to protect their friends. Neither would gain anything out of fighting the other, so they don't fight. Simple as that. Even if Shanks is overall stronger than Mihawk, that strength isn't the kind that will win him a sword duel. Because Shanks doesn't need to be the strongest, and as such, he never was ever in contention for Mihawk's title. Because Shanks does not need to be the world's strongest swordsman to protect his friends. Though if you do want to know my actual take on who's stronger between Mihawk and Shanks, then perhaps check out my Patreon to see Patreon exclusive videos such as my personal top 30 strongest of all time One Piece character ranking, and also you get your name on screen like these lovely people here.